December 1872, an American ship was found drifting in the Atlantic Ocean. Its name was the Mary Celeste. The crew had vanished. Their personal belongings were untouched. Food, cargo, and supplies were still on board. There were no signs of violence, no damage, and no explanation. More than 150 years later, no one knows what happened. The Mary Celeste was an American merchant brigantine, built in 1861 in Nova Scotia, Canada. Originally named the Amazon, the ship experienced misfortune early in its career. Its first captain fell ill and died shortly after the maiden voyage, and over the following years the vessel changed owners several times. Eventually, it was sold to an American consortium and renamed the Mary Celeste. By 1872, the ship was considered seaworthy and reliable. It measured approximately 100 feet in length and was designed for transatlantic cargo transport. In October of that year, the Mary Celeste was prepared for a routine commercial voyage from New York City to Genoa, Italy. The ship's captain was Benjamin Spooner Briggs, a 37-year-old experienced mariner from Massachusetts. Briggs was known among colleagues as deeply religious, disciplined, and cautious. He had spent most of his life at sea and was regarded as a competent and careful captain. Unlike many voyages of the time, Briggs chose to bring his family aboard. Traveling with him were his wife Sarah Elizabeth Briggs and their 2-year-old daughter Sophia Matilda Briggs. The couple's older son was left behind to attend school. The rest of the crew consisted of 7 men: first mate Albert Richardson, second mate Andrew Gilling, 4 German sailors, 1 Danish cook. All were considered experienced seamen. There was no indication of conflict among the crew, no reports of illness, and no known threats prior to departure. The cargo consisted of 1,701 barrels of denatured alcohol, intended for industrial use. While alcohol cargo carried risks due to fumes, it was a common shipment at the time. On November 7, 1872, the Mary Celeste departed New York Harbor. Weather conditions were reported as normal. The voyage was expected to take several weeks. No distress signals were sent. No warnings were recorded. The ship simply vanished from communication. The Mary Celeste's planned route followed standard transatlantic shipping lanes. After departing New York, the vessel would travel eastward toward the Azores before continuing to the Mediterranean. According to logbook entries later recovered, the voyage began uneventfully. Weather conditions fluctuated, but nothing suggested danger. The ship encountered rough seas at times, but this was common for Atlantic crossings in late autumn. The last dated entry in the ship's log was November 25, 1872. At that time, the Mary Celeste was approximately 400 miles east of the Azores. The entry noted moderate weather and standard navigation. Nothing in the log indicated panic, mutiny, fire, or damage. After that date, there were no further written records. On December 4, 1872, another merchant ship, the Dei Gratia, spotted a vessel drifting aimlessly in the Atlantic Ocean. The ship appeared intact, but was sailing erratically. Captain David Morehouse of the Dei Gratia recognized the ship as the Mary Celeste, which he knew personally. A boarding party was sent to investigate. What they found would become one of the most famous maritime mysteries in history. When the boarding party climbed aboard the Mary Celeste, they found a ship that appeared abandoned, but not damaged. The sails were partially set. The hull was intact. There was no evidence of collision, piracy, or violent struggle. Below deck, the scene was even more puzzling. The crew's personal belongings were still present. Clothing, bedding, and valuables had been left behind. The captain's navigation instruments were missing, including the sextant and chronometer. 1 lifeboat was gone. Food and water supplies were sufficient for several months. Cargo barrels were largely intact. Only 9 barrels of alcohol were later found empty or leaking, not enough to explain a disaster. There was no sign of blood, no fire damage, no bodies. The ship was seaworthy and capable of continuing its journey. Why would an experienced captain abandon a functional ship in the middle of the Atlantic, with his wife and child aboard? The Mary Celeste was sailed to Gibraltar for a formal investigation. In Gibraltar, British authorities conducted an official inquiry. Suspicion initially fell on the crew of the Dei Gratia, who stood to gain financially from salvage rights. However, no evidence supported foul play by the salvagers. Investigators examined the hull, cargo, and logbook. The ship showed signs of water in the hold, but not enough to justify abandonment. The alcohol cargo was volatile, and it was theorized that fumes may have caused concern about a possible explosion. One leading theory suggested that Briggs feared an explosion and ordered a temporary evacuation into the lifeboat, intending to tow it behind the ship. If the rope snapped, the lifeboat could have been lost at sea. Other theories included sudden weather changes, navigation miscalculations, structural concerns, panic over leaking cargo. None were conclusively proven. The inquiry concluded without assigning blame or providing a definitive explanation. More than 150 years later, the fate of the Mary Celeste's crew remains unknown. No bodies were ever found. No lifeboat was recovered. No final message was left behind. What makes the case enduring is not what was found, but what was missing. A functional ship, a capable captain, a calm logbook, and then sudden abandonment. The Mary Celeste became a symbol of maritime uncertainty. Over time, exaggerated stories added elements of horror and fantasy, but the documented facts remain far stranger. This was not a ghost story. It was a real ship, with real people, who vanished without explanation, and the ocean kept their secret.